thank you very much for coming on today. I hope you all enjoyed it.
I can hear you.
Since I heard my... I can't make it any louder.
Yes, you can.
There we are, all is now organised. I suppose, since I heard my illustrious predecessor, Mr. Nick Phillips over there, give quite a few finely honed speeches.
Nigel, we still can't hear you. Slower and into the microphone, please.
Oh, God. Like this. Right, Nick gave many finely honed speeches that I heard when he was my predecessor as chairman of the Research Network. So I shouldn't have been at all surprised that I had to do the same when I volunteered, that's volunteered with inverted commas at either end, to take over the chairmanship. But somehow, every 3 months or so, the time comes and I'm suddenly faced with the thought, what the hell do I say this time? I suppose for the first time in my life, I've got some idea now of what it must be like to be a vicar, a job for which, in all other respects, I'm totally unsuited for. Who has to speak every week in front of a critical audience? But for me, at least, it's only every 3 months. But this time, I came across a story which has some relevance to the situation. This goes back to the time of ancient Rome. And Nero was what was he? Emperor. That's right, I wouldn't say chairman. He was probably that too. At that time, as you all know, Christians used to be thrown to the lions in the Colosseum. And then one day, something rather strange happened, which was that the lions didn't eat the Christians. And word of this disaster eventually reached Nero, who rushed down to the Colosseum to see what had been going on. What's happened, he said to the guards. Well, we don't know, they said. All we saw was that one of the Christians walked up to one of the lions and whispered in his ear. And then the lion slunk away. So Nero said, right, bring me the Christian. And the Christian was duly brought in front of the Emperor. Nero, obviously in a pretty nervous state. And the Emperor said to him, what have you done to my lions? What spell have you cast over them? And the Christian said, well, look, Emperor, I haven't cast any spell, really. I just told them that after they'd had their lunch, they'd have to make a speech. And off they went. So I've had my lunch, and now I have to make a speech. So, welcome anyway. I hope you're enjoying the lunch. And can I especially welcome 3 new members, and I'm going to embarrass them by asking them to stand up. Helen Harrison. Mike Kirkham. I've seen him somewhere. Where are you, Mike? And Peter Barton. Thank you all for coming. And we also are fortunate this time to have no less than 8 guests. I won't ask them to stand up because obviously we want them to join afterwards, so we don't want to embarrass them. Belinda Beeftink, Robert Edgehill, Maureen Gilmore, Ross Harding, Dave Hawkins, Simon Patterson, I think Simon actually made it, Julian Parfit, over there, and John Bizzell from the MRS. You're all very welcome, and we hope you will want to join us. As sadly as ever, and talking of membership, I have to mention the fact that 2 of our members, Jenny Bowen and Bob Tofts, have died since we last met at the annual general meeting. Jenny would have been known to many of you for many years, but more particularly for the exceptional work she did for the Market Benevolent Association in recent years. And Bob Tofts may have been known to some of you for his work as a client at Unilever. It was also sad to hear of the death of Bill Wilson, who wasn't actually a member of the network, but he will have been known to many of you because he was chairman of the LRS, I think back in the 60s, and he was also market research manager of Heinz. We will be publishing obituaries in the next issue of the newsletter, but in the meantime, we can but record their passing and the fact that they will be missed. Moving on to happier matters. Those at the Christmas drinks and AGM, I'm delighted to say that 50 people turned up. So obviously the rebranding as Christmas drinks and AGM worked. We'll know that we spoke there of the steering group needing somebody to be responsible for membership development. Much to my surprise, nobody volunteered. There's a surprise. But looking through the guest list from previous lunches, we noted that Justin Goodman had invited loads of guests. And so we thought, well, we'd better offer him the role. So Justin has now been co-opted onto the steering group, and we look forward to many new faces at the next lunch, Justin. Because if not, you've failed in your task. We also spoke at the AGM about the need for a policy on our reserves. Perhaps surprisingly, since we're a non-profit organisation, our reserves seem to have gradually kept growing through the years of the network. And since that's not what our business is, we decided we needed a policy. Well, the steering group has now discussed this, and we've come to the conclusion that there's absolutely no reason for us to have reserves of more than 6 months' worth of our annual revenue. And so that's going to be our policy in the future. But the current reserves are more than that, so we have to decide what to do with the surplus money. No, I'm not going to give it back to you. Some of it, we are going to blow on some more extravagant functions, and I'll tell you a little more about that in a minute. But even so, planning forwards, we could still see that we would probably have more surplus funds than we really needed. So what we've decided to do, and I hope this will meet with your approval, is to give a further £1,000 to the Market Research Benevolent Association. That clearly does meet with your approval, so thank you. And the MRBA is in particular need of new funds at the moment because with interest rates as they are, their capital isn't providing them with very much income, and there are significant increasing needs on their funds because of the recession. I'd like to mention, by the way, in relation to MRBA, that there is a sponsored abseiling event on May the 15th, and if anybody wants to sponsor, who do they talk to? No, there we are. Thank you. I won't be there, of course I am a mountaineer, but I shall be in Scotland on that day climbing mountains. So. Going back to the extravagance, we decided to spend some of our surplus on rather better lunches. One of those, only slightly better than usual, will be this autumn, where we're hoping to go to Chez Girard restaurant. This is the one on the South Bank behind the Royal Festival Hall. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with Chez Girard chain. There's several of them around London. And I think that'll be a particularly good location for our autumn lunch. But the other one, more particularly, is in the autumn of 2012, so 18 months' time. This happens to be our 10th anniversary, and we felt we really ought to throw the boat out for that one. And so the two Janes, Bain and William, have been looking around for a while and found somewhere really fantastic. They won't let me tell you where it is, but I can assure, because we haven't actually made the booking yet, but I can assure you, when you get the details, you'll think, that's something I've really got to go to. I think it'll be a great event, so I look forward to seeing many of you there. So news of these events, and also of the summer party, which is the next event on July the 7th, put that in your diary, 7th of July, will be emailed to you before too long, and I hope very much to see many of you there. That's really all I have to say today, but I think you would like to join me in thanking Jane and Jane for organising another splendid event today. Thank you.